I'd like to call the Rock County Board of Supervisors meeting to order on this 13th day of July 2023 and ask Supervisor Bob Zine to read the invocation and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
We are gathered here today with a shared belief that we must treat our fellow human beings with dignity and respect. As appointed and elected members of this board, it is also incumbent upon us to remember why we are here. What is our mission? What is our business? Rock County's own website proclaims our primary values: honesty, integrity, respect. Our own county mission statement states in part that our purpose is to enhance the quality of life, health, safety, and trust of all citizens by providing top quality public service. We are here to serve the public. Let us also remember that each of us is a minority in some way. It might be race, religion, sexual orientation, or any other aspect in which we may be regarded as different. Each of us is also in a majority, and it is when we are in the majority that we must be most mindful of how we treat others. As we work together tonight on behalf of all who live in Rock County, may we draw strength and sustenance from one another through reason, civility, and compassion. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well said. Thank you. Lisa, if you'd please call the roll.
Beaver. Bob Zine. Here. Baumkamp.
Here.
Bryan.
Here.
Clayson. Here. Crary. Cullen. Here. Davis. Farrell. Here. Knutson. Levy. Mawhinney. Here. Peer. Pennycook. Here. Podzilny. Here. Rashkin. Richard. Schneider. Here. Schulz. Here. Stevens. Here. Sutherland. Here. Sweeney. Here. Towns. Here. Whitledge. Here. Wilson. Winter. Here. Woodman. Here. Zorel. Here. Bostwick.
Here.
23 present, 6 absent.
We do have a quorum. Next item, please.
Next item is adoption of agenda. 4A, adoption of agenda. 4B, approval of minutes from June 22nd, 2023. 4D, recognition of county employees or others. D1, recognizing Kurt Price. D2, recognizing Kristen Reinhardt for service to Rock County. That is the end of the consent agenda.
Are there any objections to items on the consent agenda? Supervisor Zorel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I object to items 4A and 4B.
Any others? Any questions about items on the agenda? With the exception of items 4A and B, consent agenda passes. Next item, please.
Next item is 4A, adoption of agenda.
Moved by Supervisor Mawhinney, seconded by Supervisor Podzilny. Discussion, Supervisor Zorel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to talk about agenda item 11E. According to Wisconsin State Statute 65.905 AR, the amount of tax to be levied or certified, the amounts of the various appropriations and the purposes for such appropriations may not be changed unless authorized by a 2/3 vote of the elected members of our governing body. The statute makes it clear that what we're considering isn't just a simple transfer of funds, but an amendment to our budget, since we are changing the purposes of the appropriations. In this case, shifting funding positions in the Sheriff's Department to funding new roles in the Administrative Department. Furthermore, the Attorney General's opinion in 1987 states, the vote of 2/3 of a board's entire membership is needed to transfer funds from a contingency fund to use for a purpose not anticipated in the budget. We are looking at a purpose, the creation of new positions in the Administrative Department, that was not anticipated when we first passed our budget. So these points bring me to our board rule 5G7, where it mandates that all resolutions which will modify the adopted budget shall be reviewed by the Finance Committee prior to presentation to the County Board of Supervisors. As such, I would argue that this matter should be indeed seen as a budget amendment, and therefore it first needs to be scrutinized by our Finance Committee before we take a vote on it. And Finance Committee hasn't taken a vote, they haven't even discussed it. So let's ensure we follow both the letter and spirit of our governing rules to maintain the integrity of our processes and decisions. So therefore, I move to withdraw this item from our agenda until it's been appropriately reviewed by the Finance Committee.
Other comments?
Need a second.
Corp Counsel?
You need a second.
Correct. Is there a second? Supervisor Woodman? Okay. Discussion? Comments?
Do you want me to? Do you want me to say anything?
Corp Counsel, if you would, please.
So I would say that analysis is false, like 100% false. This is not a budget amendment. The last time that we created a department, which was the airport in 2017 or 2018, we did not amend the budget and we moved an entire department onto its own platform. The purpose of the funds is to expend money consistent with emergency management functions. The expenditure is changing. The FTE is changing, but the purpose for which those monies are being expended is not changing. And the precedent that Supervisor Zorel cites, which is an Attorney General opinion, specifically dealt with creating a new line item in a budget to create a new project. This is not a new project. There is no new source of funds. There is no new expenditure in terms of the purpose of the expenditure. So this is not a budget amendment. It is only an authorization to create a new set of FTE to expend the funds for which they have already been budgeted.
Other comments, questions? Supervisor Zorel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are creating 2 new positions and deleting 1 position. We're deleting an administrative assistant position, and we're creating 2 new positions that don't even exist right now, a director and a deputy director. This is something that was not approved in our budget for these director and deputy director level positions, so it is new.
Administrator Smith?
Yeah, just briefly to reinforce Corporation Counsel's point, I think the distinction is that, yes, they are new positions, and positions are not equated to budget. But the purpose, I think the important piece here is the purpose is the same. The purpose that this funding was approved in the budget was for emergency management. The purpose for which they would be expended if this resolution is approved is for emergency management. Therefore, under state law, it is not a budget amendment as required by state law.
Mr. County Administrator, could you confirm that the positions and the FTEs actually are in our budget packet that was handed out when we voted in that big binder? Pages 5 and 13 on the administrative office, as well as the Sheriff's Office Department budget, the FTEs are listed.
Yeah, the positions that you're talking about in the resolution tonight are not there. That's why the issue is up for discussion and debate tonight, is because they are not in the budget currently. There are positions that are funded for that purpose, and these are different positions to carry out that same purpose.
Would you also be able to confirm in our committee meeting when we discussed it that you said we could be sued by doing this?
Supervisor Zorel asked at PS&J whether or not taking this action would lead to an increased likelihood that we could be sued. My answer was that if someone wants to take that into consideration in consideration of this, then they're certainly welcome to. When people ask me whether or not an action could lead to us being sued, certainly Corporation Counsel could say there's, certain things are more likely to make us be sued. But really, I can never say to you that any action you take will definitely not lead to us being sued. We get sued for things all the time that are both important and unimportant, and anybody can sue anybody else at any time for anything, and counties and local governments are typically targets of those things. So I don't believe this increases the likelihood we get sued, but I can't guarantee that someone wouldn't sue us for doing anything.
And would you also be able to confirm that when I asked this question, raised the issue in the committee, you said Supervisor Zorl is not incorrect?
About what issue?
That it's a budget amendment?
It is not a budget amendment, so I don't remember exactly what I said in committee, but it is not a budget amendment.
When I said it was a budget amendment, you said Supervisor's not incorrect, and that was my thought too.
I don't recall saying that. I can tell you now, it is not a budget amendment.
Thank you.
Supervisor Peer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to cease discussion and call this to a vote, please.
We have, the question has been called and seconded. So if you vote in the affirmative, that means that you want to end discussion. If you vote in the negative, that means you want to continue discussing it. This is, well, first of all, Corp Counsel, what do we need for a threshold for passing on this?
So with 23 members present, 2/3 of the quorum is 16.
So 16 yeses would kill debate, anything less would extend debate. This is roll call. Please vote.
Supervisor Pennycook? 19 yes, 4 no, 6 absent.
Debate is ended on this. So we're back to approving the agenda. So if you wish to approve the agenda,
No.
please.
We have to vote on the withdrawal.
Okay, we're voting on the amendment, pardon me, that Supervisor Zorl introduced. This is roll call. Please vote. Sure, Lisa, please.
The amendment is to withdraw item 11E from the agenda.
Are we clear? Roll call, please vote.
Yes, 5, no, 18, 6 absent.
Okay, thank you. Next item, please.
We still have to vote on the agenda. We have to vote on the agenda. Can I make a note, please?
Yeah.
So the original agenda did not, we had several items removed from the agenda, and I just wanted to highlight those. 11.2, transferring sales tax funding from the Rock Haven operational budget to the excess sales tax account and amending the 2023 budget. And item 11C, authorizing an incentive payment to direct care staff at Rock Haven. Those were pulled because they are doing a state audit survey right at the moment, so they couldn't meet. Item 11F, amending the county board rule 3F and 3J, department head introducing resolutions recognizing retiring county employees and limiting resolutions. That was postponed in staff meeting to August. And then item 11G, requiring the county administrator's office to produce a record on county activities. The author is looking to refine that further, so that was pulled also.
Okay, that is the agenda. We will vote on the adoption of the agenda now. Roll call, please vote.
Yes, 22, 1 no, 6 absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is item 8B, approval of minutes from June 22nd, 2023.
Supervisor Winter and Supervisor Baumkamp. Supervisor Zorl.
To clarify, was that a motion and a second, and then the third was discussion?
Yes.
Okay,
Time
thank
for
you.
discussion.
Great, okay. To start, a point of parliamentary inquiry with regards to changing meeting minutes. In some instances, we've taken a vote to change the meeting minutes. For example, June 8th approval of minutes. And in other instances, like when we had a vote change on our budget, Supervisor Schultz from no to yes, that we did not take a vote on that. Are you able to clarify the reason why one supervisor might require a vote and another does not?
So it's the concept of unanimous consent, which we don't use a ton of in our body, but generally speaking, when matters are put before the body, if there's no objection, then those matters can be adopted by unanimous consent, which we have used pretty frequently with regard to the agenda and with regard to the minutes. Even before we had a consent calendar, there were pretty frequent times when the agenda might get changed at the last minute, or meeting minutes, somebody would discover an error in the meeting minutes, and so they would just sort of articulate the error to the clerk in the meeting, and then that would be as part of the kind of main motion. And the general concept there is basically if a change is proposed in those kinds of things and nobody objects to that change, then it can be adopted by unanimous consent, and that's functionally what happens. And then if somebody does object, or if the chair thinks that there's maybe a little bit more to parse out and that it's more appropriate for a vote, the chair can always call for a vote on any particular matter that they think would be more clear for the body to understand what's being adopted, or more clear for the public to understand what's being adopted.
I have two changes. The first change, I ask for unanimous consent. Approval of minutes, June 8th, 2023, states proclaiming July 2nd to 3rd, and that should be July 2nd through 8th. And if I have consent on that, I'll go to the next one.
We should ask if there's any objection.
Are there any objections to that motion by Supervisor Zorl? Seeing none, that passes by unanimous consent.
Thank you.
Continue.
And the second change is in citizen participation, communications, and announcements. It's my understanding that we would typically include participation for people that email in, and there were 3 emails, but I don't see it in there. So I would request that we add that. And with help of the clerk, she could perhaps explain those emails.
So I didn't put them in the minutes because they weren't read in the meeting. So they weren't part of what action was taken in the meeting.
So this is actually maybe a good example of where a motion and a second would be a little bit more warranted, because maybe there's some discussion so I'm just using this as an educational opportunity. If the board felt that this should be discussed and not just was a simple change should be approved, then somebody could object, and then Supervisor Zorl would have to make a motion, and there would have to be a second, and then there would need to be discussion in order to approve that motion. If the body feels that they understand the nature of the change and they're totally fine with the change and nobody needs to discuss it, then it's completely okay to just go by unanimous consent and adopt that change as a part of the minutes. So it's really up to the board which way to go with that.
Any objections? Motion passes by unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
That takes us back to the minutes. We need to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Supervisor Sweeney, seconded by Supervisor Winter.
We already have this.
Okay. All in favor? Let's do roll call. This is roll call. Please vote.
Yes, 22. Rich voted yes also. It's 23 yes, 0 no. 6 absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item is public hearing. We do not have a public hearing this evening. Item 6, citizen participation, communications, and announcements.
Yes, as mentioned at our last meeting, when speakers come up to speak, we like you to give your name and address. Your address does not have to be your specific street address. It can be Mike Jones, City of Janesville, or Tom Wilson, Town of Porter, whatever. If you want to give your complete street address, you may, but that is not a requirement. That being said, Lisa, if you would want to go ahead with our first speaker.
So we will call your name. Please come to the podium up at the front over here. You'll be allowed 2 minutes to speak. There will be a timer that goes off. At 2 minutes, we'll say thank you. You're done. The next person will come up. Our first speaker is Carrie Waite. On deck is Jackie Wood, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Wyatt, City of Janesville. I am the chairwoman of the Rock County Anti-Human Trafficking Task Force, and I also represent the School District of Janesville on the task force. My role here this evening is to dispel some misinformation that is circulating throughout our communities throughout Rock County, as well as to give you accurate information about resources that we currently have had in place since 2017 to fight human trafficking and, in specific, child sex trafficking in Rock County. In 2017, we signed a formal MOU with over 35 multi-jurisdictional agencies in Rock County that include education, law enforcement, human services, advocacy groups, and health services. And these agencies, our goal is to provide resources, education, prevention, intervention, and then resources for youth who are at risk of being sex trafficked or who have been sex trafficked. And we have an expansive and very cohesive group of professionals that serve on our task force, and we want our community to know that we have educated over 6,000 adults and students throughout Rock County since 2017. And one of the pieces of misinformation that we really want you to understand is we are very effective, we are experts in our communities, and we do have a fabulous resource here in Rock County. So we would like you to be invited to 2 upcoming community panel events. We're going to host one in Beloit at the library and one in Janesville at Hedberg. There will be a daytime and an evening event. We will have panels from our expert panels. We have 5 different experts in the different fields. And we really, really invite you to come and be a part of the conversation.
Carrie?
Yes, so sorry. Thank you.
Jackie Wood is next. On deck is Craig Keller.
Thank you, Chairman Bostwick and County Board members. I am Jackie Wood. I live 2 blocks up the street. And I was on the county board for 8 years, and I walked to the meetings, and I didn't take mileage. But someone said I should have charged for shoes. But anyway, I love being on the county board. It was an honor and a privilege to be elected and to be sworn in to elected office. And some of you are still here that I served with, so I have witnesses. But I dearly loved it. It gave me a sense of pride to be able to serve constituents. I served with a group that had camaraderie and even with disagreements, showed respect for one another. And as I said, some of you are still here. I am here this evening to speak out about the recent challenges to the board. There have always been resolutions that members have a right to bring before the board that did not have anything to do with the county board. But they were discussed and were made, and decisions were made, and the county board continued on without any outcry or dissent. Everyone showed respect and dignity to one another. The recent resolution should not have escalated into the level that it has. And I am here to beg, not ask, that you return to being the public servants you were elected and sworn in to be, and that all vitriol cease and mutual respect be shown to everyone. It hurts others, and it is an embarrassment to our county and its citizens to have this activity on and outside this county board. Please, please get back to business and serve us well. Also, be kind. I wanted to add this. It's a catchphrase being used a lot, and it wouldn't hurt to practice it here. The other one is to love one another, and this is not Bible camp, so I'm not asking you to do that. But please, please, serve us well and get back with the duties that you were sworn in to do. Thank you.
Craig Keller. Next speaker is Krista Brethke.
Hello. Everyone is pretty aware who I am, but my name's Craig Keller. I'm from the village of Footville. I came here tonight because there's been a lot of stuff out in the deal about Brian. I'm going to tell you, when I first saw that statement, I was taken aback. It bothered me a lot, but I've known Brian for quite a few years. I don't know him real well. I know Brian has done some great things in Rock County. In my heart, I knew that wasn't an accurate statement for him, but I'm still bothered by the fact that that resolution got voted down. I've heard a lot of things about it being just a bunch of fluff and a bunch of this and that. And I don't know, to me, it's very personal because I have children that have been part of sexual assault. So that kind of stuff is very personal to me. And to just kind of blow it off, in my mind, it's a bunch of fluff. It's a pretty poor excuse to not look at something more seriously. I'm not well versed in what happens with the county board. I try to keep up on things as best I can. But I know there's been some other resolutions passed, with regards to Pride Month and with standing against racism, and I'm all about that. I think that stuff is very important, and I think it's stuff that needs to be addressed. But why can we address those issues, but we can't address issues about child sex trafficking? I know we got a great group of people working on that in this county, but to me, the more people that know and are aware of it, and if we do it once a year, every week, what's it hurt? It might prevent that small child from being part of that horrible experience. I've got children that are in their mid-30s that are still dealing with that crap. And it really bothers me that people don't take it seriously, because it is very serious. So that's all I have to say. I hope people can look back, and if it ever comes back, we can take it a little more seriously, because God forbid it ever happens to anybody else's family member. It's not fun.
Craig, thank you. Krista, on deck is Tim Bremmel.
So I'm Krista Bethke. I work for Family Services as a sexual assault recovery program, human trafficking survivor advocate. Out of Beloit is my location. The reason that I'm here tonight is, he's correct, it is a very serious issue that all communities need to take seriously, but we also need to do it with the facts in hand and not work against the people that are in the trenches and in the business. We need to understand that somebody that's an immigrant, 92%, and this comes from U.S. Department of Health statistics, 92% of people that were put in jail as offenders are actually documented citizens. 41% of assaults come from within families, and 31% of child sex trafficking comes from within families. I'm not saying it doesn't happen otherwise and outside, but I would urge everybody here to make sure you're educated and that you know, and you come to our task force, you become involved, you get educated on things. Ask those of us that are in the trenches, doing the work and working with the people that we have and know what we're doing, so we are aware in our community and not missing the things that are happening. It hides within our families. It hides within people that we know, and that's our biggest thing that we're fighting against right now. I see it all the time in what I do, and I've been doing this for about 4 years now, and it's a difficult thing. So please educate yourself while you're making your decisions, and know that there is support in your community from our agency and from several agencies that are on the human trafficking task, the anti-human trafficking task force. So that's all I really have to say.
Tim Brummel. On deck is Tina Baumgartner.
Tim Brummel, Orfordville, Wisconsin. A couple of things. First of all, what has transpired against one of your board supervisors, Brian Knutson, is the biggest travesty I've ever seen come out of things that have been discussed at this board. I am not in any way suggesting that anyone on the board is responsible. But when the board strays from doing the board's business, fixing roads, setting budgets, figuring out how we're going to keep the community safe, do we have enough people and programs in law enforcement, all of the things that the residents in this county truly need. And those are set aside to talk about advocacy issues of which people may or may not agree. I've said on my program on WCLO for the last 3 years that this will end disastrously, and it has. Because some of you believe one thing and you want to force it across the board, and then the board kicks back the other way, and we know there's this political division, and it's not part of board practice. Please do your job as board members. Please serve the community, serve each other, and leave your personal advocacy out there outside this room. There are people here tonight who obviously are in charge of that and doing a wonderful job in educating the community. And there would be nothing wrong with this board deciding to be proactive and setting a committee up to work on advocacy or doing something like that. But this tit-for-tat stuff has got to stop, or you'll destroy another person's life. And the last person you want off this county board is Brian Knutson. Thank you.
Tina Baumgartner.
Hi, I'm Tina Baumgartner. I live in Janesville, Wisconsin. First off, I am not a professional speaker. So I'd just like to say that I can appreciate everything that everyone has already brought forth to this board. I'm ashamed of this board. The backstabbing and the treatment that Brian has been with what's been going on. My husband and I have worked with Brian for the last 13 years with his organization in Orfordville, helping hand out packages and families in crisis and in need. And Brian is the most giving person that I've ever met in my entire life. He has given more of himself. He works 3 or 4 jobs. He bankrupts himself to support families in need and in crisis. He's kept sex offenders out of communities where they don't belong, small communities that they could devastate. I'm angry at the way everyone's behaving. It's like a bunch of kindergartners. And the threats to his family, I can't even believe it. They can't even let their daughter play outside, his niece play outside, because people pull in the driveway and call her and try to, I don't know the word, bring her out to their van. What is wrong with the world? They threaten them at the grocery store. They're handing out flyers. They're handing out things, bad guy, good guy. Whoever's doing that needs to be punished. It's disgraceful. And we're all adults. Why can't this situation with this issue be talked about and resolved and not go behind someone's back and hand out flyers at the grocery store, at the movie store, at the movie theater? I'm just ashamed of the way people have behaved. Brian is the most incredible person I've ever met. He has done so much for the communities. My husband and I, we deliver packages at Christmas for families in need and crisis. And Brian's there from dawn to dusk and more. And he's always the one we call when we say, we have a family that needs help. Brian is the one we call. When every other group says, we can't take any more names, we can't help any more families, Brian's group helps them. I shop on Christmas Eve for families in need and crisis.
Tina,
Thank you so much.
that was the last speaker that was, okay, apparently not. Thank you for bringing those up. Next speaker is Dennis Hagendorf. Hilgendorf, sorry.
Thank you, Board. Thank you, Supervisor. My name is Dennis Hilgendorf. I live in the township of Janesville. I listened to the interview on WCLO this morning and took offense at one of the statements, that the resolution that was voted down by the board was individually brought and did not represent the constituents. I'm a constituent, and it does represent me. I think it represents a lot of people, as shown by the people in this room right now. There's a lot of people here. I'd ask the board, how many of you polled your constituents or talked to them to see if they were in agreement or not? I would bet most of you didn't even discuss that resolution with them. I think you would see that there's a lot of people that were for that. It's your prerogative whether to vote against or for, but I think you need to talk to them more and listen to them. And I don't see a lot of that going on in this board. I don't know how many of the board members saw the movie, the Sound of Freedom. I think if you would have, you may have voted differently also. This isn't about an individual or a couple of individuals. This is about doing what's right and what's right for our children. And I hope none of you go through having one of your child or your grandchildren in this situation, because it does happen here. You can ignore it, but Rock County does have sex trafficking here, whether you like it or not. And if you think you know that you have everyone here, there's 85,000 people that the government can't account for right now, children. Where did they go? They can't answer where they went. I would bet you some of them are right here in Rock County. I think if you think it's a waste of time to protect our children and grandchildren against sex trafficking, then maybe you should just replace. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Lisa Burnside. On deck is Andrea Briermoon.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Burnside, and I live here in Janesville. I've come down here on request of my children to be closer to them 3 years ago. I really never paid attention to board meetings for the county or anything like that, but there's been a lot of things that I feel going on that I needed to start to participate and actually provide my voice for those that are innocent. I recently attended the meeting where that sex trafficking for the children was voted down, and I really thought that that was incredible. I couldn't believe that that even happened in the county that I'm living. And I also, which I believe it ties in because it was for the same week that the Sound of Freedom movie came out. I went to it twice. I went with my spouse, and then my neighbor wanted to go after I told her about it. What I don't think people realize is there's a lot of pedos all over the place, including government workers. I don't know if anybody remembers Jerry Sandowski. He was the beloved assistant coach at Penn State, who also had a second mile club, and that's where he gained a lot of access to children. He's serving a lot of time. There's also Larry Nasser that probably affected 500 kids through the United States gymnastic teams. It's pretty sick, folks, when the parents are trying to live through their kids and that their athletics are going to be really thrilling for them one day. Also, I don't know if people have been listening to recently, I think it was this past April, where whistleblowers Aaron Stevenson and Tara Rodas, who work for the government, says that our tax dollar dimes are going for trafficking children, that they don't want to put safety first on these kids coming across the border. They're giving them to whoever is listed as a contact person that they can go to, and they're not even relatives.
Lisa?
So I would hope that you bring that resolution back and vote for it and help protect children. Thank you.
Andrea Briarmoon. On deck is Sue Ryan.
Andrea Briarmoon, Janesville, Wisconsin. I went into the police department a couple weeks ago. I sent this as an email. There were these banners all over the place that had nothing to do with police keeping our community safe. It was one in particular, amplifying LGBTQ plus voices, not the United States flag, and young people looking like minors. And my response is, nobody cares who you are boinking or what's in your underwear. And why is this in our faces? In the police lobby of all places. Thank God I did not have a child with me. What does sex and genitals, Kardashian plastic surgery, body mutilation, private medical information, hormone castration have to do with police protection of our constitutional rights and our safety? Where is the poster and flags for heterosexual sex and genitals? That would not be appropriate. Instead, could we amplify the voice that we are all red-blooded Americans and that the only flag we the people flaunt in our government service facilities is the flag of the United States of America? Please clean it up, folks. Get this divisive, inappropriate stuff out of these public buildings, and please stick to the job description. Thank you.
Sue Ryan?
Thank you, County Board, for letting me speak. I just wanted to educate the public a little bit on some of the gruesome atrocities of evil that are happening worldwide. Many countries are involved, the military-industrial complex, like BlackRock, State Street, and etc. Factions of law enforcement, Border Patrol, federal, state, and local police, corrupt governments of many countries, border cities, ports, shipping companies, islands. Examples are the United States, Netherlands, India, Taiwan, China, Puerto Rico, Ukraine, Crimea, the Crimea port below Ukraine. Just recently, 807 children were rescued off the coast of San Francisco. And a few years back, at China Lake Military Port, 5,000 children were found in a cave underneath the coast in cages. The Evergreen ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal and many other ships at sea have had people in them that they're being trafficked. Warehouses and empty tractor trailers. St. Peter's Church in Rockford with rooms underneath the ground and tunnels, and also in Milwaukee. Lime pits and vats that dissolve the bodies so there is no evidence. Satanic ritual abuse. Adrenochrome drained from bodies while being tortured, then sacrificed to Satan, then cannibalized. Dissect them while they're alive and sell their body parts. Pizzagate is real. Hot dogs mean little boys. Mac and cheese means little girls. Walnut sauce means dark-skinned because they're more effective. Black-eyed children with broken blood vessels that burst while they're being sexually abused. Screenshots and lists of people that are used for adrenochrome. I have screenshots of them. Thank you.
That is the last speaker that's signed up to speak this evening.
Are there any supervisors with communications tonight? Supervisor Zorel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to bring up an issue here that a constituent of ours has addressed, Mr. James Foss. He's written in some comments lately over the past few months, and frankly, I don't know if I agree with much of any of what he said. But you know what? I do respect his First Amendment and his right to say it. And his comments in his email wasn't going to be read tonight to the board, and so I'm going to stand up for him, even though I may not agree with him on everything. And he said, "I think that the ending of the reading of written comments is appalling. That policy was the only way that many members of the public were able to voice their opinions on what the County Board of Supervisors was doing. Those people who work second shift jobs are now unable to speak their opinions and thoughts because of the ending of this policy. By allowing the end of this policy, the voices of so many in our communities are being cut off and silenced. I'm sure I speak for many members of our community when I say we refuse to be silenced and demand that the reading of written public comments be reinstated as soon as possible. We will not be silenced or cut out of the participation of our county government. Each one of us has taken an oath to the Constitution that includes the First Amendment." Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Other supervisors, Supervisor Farrell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to address scurrilous pamphlets that have been distributed.
Supervisor Farrell, could you turn your microphone on?
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to address the scurrilous pamphlets that have been distributed in the community, one of which has my name on it. It says, "Urgent parent and grandparent alert. Protect your children from child sex traffickers and arrogant County Board Supervisor Jim Farrell." I've been in politics about 9 years or so, and the scurrilous attacks on Supervisor Knudsen and myself are the lowest form of politics I've ever seen. The cowards or coward that wrote this pamphlet is really stooping to the lowest level I have seen in politics. It implies that Supervisor Knudsen and I are like sex traffickers and we approve of that. We don't. And those of you who have misled or misinterpreted my comments and Supervisor Knudsen's comments, neither one of us approve of sex trafficking or illegal immigration. as Mr. Bremmel said, that is not a topic. I didn't bring it forth. I didn't bring that topic here. It's inappropriate. I said it's a waste of my time to deal with that. In this piece of crap pamphlet, it mentions I should resign now. My comment to that coward, I'm not resigning at all. I'm not deterred by you, whoever it is, the coward that did this. I am going to serve the best I can for Rock County. And I think it's horrible. A fine supervisor like Brian Knudsen has to be harassed by idiots that believe this piece of crap pamphlet. And any one of you supervisors can get a copy from me. And how would you like to have your name and your neighbors see this? Would you like that? I won. So the coward that wrote this, I hope you're happy. You've caused a lot of problems, a lot of stress for people, so good for you. That's all I have to say. And those of you who have lectured the county board, maybe you ought to be worried about the cowards that wrote this pamphlet instead of lecturing us. Okay? Thank you very much.
Supervisor Knudsen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you're all aware, flyers have been posted across Rock County stating that I am in favor of child sex trafficking and illegal immigration. On top of that, damaging insinuations and flagrant slander has been cast on my reputation, credibility, and worthiness even as a community member. All of this started because I had a tongue slip when I was talking at committee. Haven't any of you had a tongue slip? I bet you have. To crucify me because of this, it's not right. I am human. I think my follow-up and remaining comments on the issues in the resolution through the rest of the meeting made it clear that I was not opposed to combating illegal activities, but rather I had some concerns with the resolution itself. I want to make it clear, since the source of this controversy, that I would never be in favor of illegal activities such as child sex trafficking and illegal immigration. Let me preface something. When I reference you as I'm talking about everyone who participated in this evil smear campaign. It is scary to know that unsigned negative propaganda would be believed by so many people, and to know that it could move the masses of people to volunteer to participate in a negative campaign such as this. The people creating the negative slander materials didn't even have the courage to pen their name or organization to it. Isn't that a telltale sign that something's just not right? You knew going into it that the reason you were doing it was intended to bring pain to someone. Make someone pay because you didn't get your way. Vote my way or you will pay. Is that the point you were trying to make? Shame on all of you who participated in this. We will find out who you are. When this many people are involved, someone will slip up and let the cat out of the bag. It's sad when you don't even know me or what I stand for, and you're so quick to jump on the bandwagon to ruin me. People talk, and eventually those with a conscience will come forward or eventually take credit for the campaign. Your aggressive bullying and scare tactics inflicted into this unit of government are not acceptable. The bullying has to stop. Shame on Movie 16 for allowing the slander campaign in your establishment. After being contacted by someone from Jefferson County telling me about what was going on at the movie theater, I went there myself to see. I was appalled. I heard firsthand from you what you were saying. I saw all the flyers that you were handing out and the horrible remarks that you were making. I took video of you right in front of the candy and popcorn counter and hitting people up as they're going to exit the building. I was appalled that you, Movie 16, would allow such an event. You don't even know me. I guarantee you that I will never do business with Movie 16. I filed a report with the Janesville Police Department. I have reported these activities to the Janesville Post Office and all of our local post offices. They will be gathering information for the U.S. Postal Inspector. Placing materials as you did in post office boxes is illegal. You will be taken to task for this. I would like to say thank you to everyone who offered to provide Ring doorbell footage, security camera footage, and eyewitness accounts. All information that we can provide the U.S. Postal Inspector is appreciated. Imagine all the good that could have been accomplished if you spent the amount of time creating, distributing, and delivering these smear campaign materials, and you would have put that amount of time into doing something constructive in our community. There are so many nonprofits who could use an extra hand. Volunteer to pick up trash in the parks, help at a food bank, deliver Meals on Wheels, help our homeless, work with people in the community to do something positive. And shame on you for using God in your slander campaign. The Lord I know would never guide me to do something evil and spread hate. My God is my salvation. My God is good. He is my strength. I continue to pray that God gives me the strength to get through this. I represent my constituents by working side by side with them on matters that help our community and our county be a better place. I don't hide behind radical Facebook posts or any social media for that matter. A person can't represent their constituents via social media and Facebook. The only way to represent our citizens is to be out in the community, boots on the ground, listening, learning, and helping. If I disagree with an outcome from a meeting, I would never call someone out for disagreeing with them and try to create a hateful forum online after the fact. There is a reason why we have discussions during meetings. Flush out all the details. Express your thoughts. Be respectful, no matter if you agree or disagree with the outcome of the vote. We need to stop being distracted with all this nonsense. Go back to doing what we were elected to do. Take care of issues that are affecting our hardworking taxpayers. Keep moving Rock County towards one of the best places to live, work, and raise a family. Let's show the taxpayers that we know them, we represent them, and we care about them. I pray that there will be healing at all levels in this county. I pray for those who carry hate in their heart. I pray for those who participated in these horrible activities. I pray that we can move forward in a positive fashion and leave all this behind. I pray for the strength to get through this. I've worked with passion my entire life, devoting my time to assisting families with children at Christmas time, delivering aid to homeless families, volunteering in organizations that empower and develop youth into future leaders, and conducting food drives for families in tough times, such as the ones we did during COVID. I worked hard to coordinate free computers for our school computer lab. I worked diligently to prevent the placement of sex offenders in Footville, where they would have been on the same street as over a dozen children. I conduct furniture and food clothing drives for families who've encountered fires. I'm heavily involved in the Rock County 4-H Fair, and I volunteer to help anyone in need in any capacity that I'm able to do. I am not the villain that being painted in the smear campaign going on in the county right now. I take pride in the fact that I work side by side in the community with volunteers who are making a difference to families who are struggling in Rock County. I will repeat, I do not endorse, nor would I ever support illegal activities in this county. A special thank you to all the people that believe in me. Truly, thank you. Thank you to all of my friends and supporters that knew that the slander campaign was not true. I cannot say thank you enough. When life gets a person down, it's the reassuring and kind actions and words of others that get us through the tough times. You all are my family, and I appreciate it. Thank you. I will continue to fight for the families in Rock County. Now let's move forward and do some positive things for our county and our citizens. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So some of you will know that I'm the founder and executive director of Rock County Jumpstart. And I just want to let everybody know that we have our third accelerator pitch on July 18th at the Beloit Public Library. That's Tuesday. That's what, this coming Tuesday? 5:30 p.m. to 8. We have 9 business owners competing. The top 5 winners will receive grant awards. Dinner will be served 5:30 p.m. to 6:30. The pitch starts promptly at 7. And Backyard Barbecue, some of you might know who that is. The winner of our very first pitch event is the caterer. I hear that our events are some of the best, most fun events in the county, and that we serve some of the best food when we have our events. So we would love to have you come out. If you want to attend, we have probably about 35 seats left. So you would just go to our website, rockcountyjumpstart.org, and you can sign up right on our website. There's a link right at the top of the page. Thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Others? Supervisor Mohini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that. Never thought that I'd have to make a statement like this. Enough is enough. We used to be a board that would discuss, argue, and come to consensus, being respectful of others. We could leave a meeting and not fear that we would be taken to task for our actions. The snarky and rude remarks must stop. It's time to show respect for our fellow board members, even when we disagree. Each one of us has been elected or appointed to do the work of Rock County, where working together should be our goal. Good board members. 1, reflect the culture for the whole organization. 2, the mission, vision, and values of an organization matter, are thoughtful, and are unique to your entity. 3, civility, dignity, respect, courage, and grace all go a long way. Thank you.
Others? Supervisor Peer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my understanding, I haven't seen it myself, but I've had other people mention that there were lists passed around about which way supervisors voted on what we've been discussed here. And I guess my reaction to the whole thing is it seems to always go back to communication. Communication, education, and using good listening skills. Communication's a two-way street. We can't control it, but we can ask people to really think about, study, and know what our issues are really about, all sides. In this kind of a body, I don't say it very often, but I think everyone here knows, but I'll say it, evil is real. Evil is not rational. I'll say unequivocally, not only Brian, no one here in this body is for sex trafficking or any illegal activities. I have no doubt about that at all. And yet some people will listen to a little bit of what has been said or written, and they'll bring their own background, and they'll summarize with a wide paintbrush what they now believe supervisors on the Rock County Board are about. Think about that. I'll go back to communication. Is that good communication? Is that studying? Is that listening? Is that reading? Study to show yourself approved before taking up that wide paintbrush. And I'm not talking about just supervisors here. I'm talking about all citizens in Rock County. It's everybody's responsibility about all the issues. And if we all do that well, the problems will be solved through the good Lord above. Because if you don't have morality in your heart, God help you in the decisions that you make. We need morality. Otherwise, a lot of this is just going to keep going and going and going. I ask each person here to check out what you feed your mind on, the people that you associate, the way you live. In your heart, my father always used to say this when I was young, when he was still around. He was raised, by the way, in an orphanage. And he would never give him the excuse, and he never gave me the excuse. He says, in your heart, you know what's right and wrong. Check that out, too. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Others? Supervisor Rashkin?
Thank you, Chair. Hope your voice gets better. I want to first express my support and solidarity with Supervisor Farrell and Knudsen. I think that these are outstanding individuals that I had an honor to serve together, and everybody who gets involved on Rock County Board of Supervisors wants to do good in the community. That's why people run. So first of all, I think there's some lessons here. I guess first of all is the support for supervisors. Second of all is the lessons. And I feel that there's lessons for us on the board, and I hope that there's lessons for people who came to speak to us tonight. Because it's my impression that people who came to speak to tell us that apparently we're for sex trafficking are being used by somebody who has an agenda. And when people get their information from this, it's beginning of the problem, because that's a flyer. There is not even a QR code on it. So this is perfectly lame, and to support this kind of stuff, I think, is disrespectful of yourself. If you feel that you need to, like your whole body elected officials are these horrible people, then maybe you're getting information in the wrong place. I feel that this is very interesting for me to watch, because I haven't been, I voted to table this, but I haven't received any calls or anything. But it seems like some of the members on the board that are, more conservative are dealing with this, and my condolences. Sorry, but that's, the base. So just for information for everybody who is confused by what's going on with this board being for child sex, come on. There was a resolution that was an ideological, political, partisan resolution that was tabled. And that's where it's a lesson for us as the board. We just can't get away from dealing with things by tabling them, because things come back. Because people come back and people have things to say, and out of our best intentions, trying to not have a battle about a controversial issue, let's table it. Well, that didn't work. So I think there's lessons for us. There's hopefully lessons for everybody here. And again, my support to poor supervisors who got caught up in this mess. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Woodman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to say that since I've come on the board, I've tried to be respectful and all that goes with it. And I have seen some things and heard some things that have been just awful. So I would encourage each supervisor to look in the mirror and know that some of the things even been said tonight were a little hypocritical. And just understand that we all know what goes on in this room, and we hear it. I just try to move on and be positive. I hope that everyone will truly think about what gets done and said. I've said from the beginning that there are resolutions that we shouldn't deal with because it's not the county's business. And that's where a lot of this comes in. So I'm hoping in the future that we deal with resolutions that are stick to our policies and recognizing our employees and leave the rest of it alone. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Others? Excuse me. Not to pile on, but by now, if you've been listening, you're painfully aware of the hateful anonymous flyers that have been circulating, targeting not only Supervisors Knutson and Farrell, but also Supervisor Stevens. I truly believe that all of us condemn this in the strongest possible way. I also believe that anybody responsible should be held accountable. This kind of stuff happens in Madison and Washington, D.C., but we are not Madison. We are not Washington, D.C. We're far from it. And to kind of paraphrase what Supervisor Mohini said a moment ago, used to be that we would discuss, vote, and move on. Discuss, vote, and move on. And I think we need to return to that, and I'd like to see that start tonight. Thank you. Next item, please.
Anything from staff?
Oh, anything from staff? Okay, go ahead, Lisa, please.
Item 7, nominations, appointments, and confirmations. 7A, appointments to the Ad hoc Airport Planning Committee.
Moved by Supervisor Whitledge, seconded by Supervisor Towns. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item B.
7B, appointment to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council.
Moved by Supervisor Whitledge again, Supervisor Beaver. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Item C.
Appointment to the General Services Committee.
Moved by Supervisor Winter, seconded by Supervisor Bryan. Supervisor Zorl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question on this one. I noticed that when the staff committee was going through this list of appointing people, for example, we have another standing committee, item F, Finance Committee, and that there was like an application process for the Finance Committee, but I noticed that there was not such process on General Services Committee, and I did email and ask you about it. I did not get a response. Would you be able to explain the reason why those two committees were treated differently?
Sure. Historically, and as recently as Supervisor Davis's appointment, incoming supervisors that are appointed to the board assume the committee load of their predecessor, as is the case here. I recommended to the staff committee that we make two exceptions to this. One would be finance and one would be staff. The thinking here is that these committees rely more heavily on institutional knowledge and related experience than the other committees do, which is not to cast any shade on the other committees because I'm on those other committees. It just seems like the learning curve should be flatter because they deal with the weightier issues, and the committee is in agreement with this. They could have changed that, but they decided to go along. So that is the rationale.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to be voting no, but I want it to be clear it's not because of who you appointed. It's an objection to the process.
Understood? Others? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Next item, please.
Item 7D, appointment to the Southern Wisconsin Regional Airport Board.
Supervisor Baumkamp and Supervisor Whitledge. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item, please.
7E, appointment to the Aging and Disability Resource Center Advisory Committee.
Moved by Supervisor Bryan, seconded by Supervisor Towns. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item, please.
7F, appointment to the Finance Committee.
Moved by Supervisor Towns, seconded by Supervisor Mohini. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item.
Item 7G, appointments to the Park Advisory Committee.
Moved by Supervisor Peer, seconded by Supervisor Mohini. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item, please.
7H, appointments to the Ad Hoc Committee on Passenger Rail.
Moved by Supervisor Sweeney, seconded by Supervisor Whitledge. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item, please.
Item 8, recognition of county employees or others. 8A, honoring Walter Knight.
Moved by Supervisor Bryan, seconded by Supervisor Peer. Josh, did you have anything to say about that?
I just wanted to say Supervisor Levy was unable to be here tonight for a work-related issue that came up at the last minute, and so he just wanted to make sure that you're aware that that was the reason. Certainly, he would have spoken to Mr. Knight's resolution tonight.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Next item, please.
Next item, item 9, introduction of new resolutions or ordinances by supervisors for referral to appropriate committee.
Any supervisor wishing to introduce a new resolution, please bring it forward at this time. Any others? Supervisor Farrell, if you give a very brief summation of your proposed resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Briefly, I'll give, this resolution has to do with, I watched an online seminar in May given by two attorneys from Atolis Law Firm. This seminar was on code of ethics. This law firm specializes in constructing code of ethics. My resolution is to direct the Atolis Law Firm to submit a quote to Rock County to work on a code of ethics for Rock County. Rock County is the only county in the top 13 counties in the state by population that does not have a code of ethics for county board supervisors. Most counties have ethics commissions to deal with ethics violations. There's several reasons I'm proposing this. Number one, it gives specific guidelines to new members. Number two, it sends a message to our residents that the board takes ethics seriously. Number three, it will give a process for members and residents to file complaints on perceived ethics violation. I believe Rock County should have its own code of ethics. And I think this law firm does a fine job on it. And I think I've communicated with them. They've communicated with our corporation counsel and with Josh Smith, and they'd be more than willing to do it. And I think it would be, if somebody, I just think we should not be the outlier in code of ethics. And I take ethics very seriously, and I hope I hope all of my co-members do too, because if you don't have ethics, the public doesn't trust you. And I think this is incumbent, and this is my resolution. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Item 10, reports. 10A, Rock County Sheriff's Office Hostage Negotiators Team.
Caleb, you've already?
Yeah.
It's my pleasure this evening to introduce part of our hostage negotiation team. Sergeant Caleb Buten's the team commander for it. Sergeant Schauer's been a longtime member of it. And Sergeant Peters here just joined it not too long ago, but he had also been in Greene County and been on theirs for a number of years as well. The service they give the community is hugely important. They're going to go over a number of things. This is another step. I know we've had a number of people coming up here lately, but I think it's important for you guys still to have different ideas of, or different understandings of different tasks that we do within our agency. And these guys do something that is often a very difficult thing and brings situations to a conclusion that otherwise could go terribly wrong. And being a former SWAT commander, I use them quite a bit for a lot of different things. They don't always get the credit for the people that wear all the fancy stuff and do the other things, but they're a huge part of our agency. So, Caleb?
All right, thank you. As we said, my name is Caleb Buten. I'm a sergeant with the Sheriff's Office and the team leader for the Rock County Hostage Negotiations Team. So the hostage negotiation team is part of the Rock County SWAT team. The mission of our team is to provide skilled verbal communicators to be utilized to attempt to de-escalate and effect surrender in critical situations. What that means is we simply talk to people that we got training for to try and get build rapport with them, to build their trust, to get them to surrender peacefully so nobody gets hurt or injured. Each of our team members has a minimum of 40-hour basic negotiator course. We try and get some advanced courses, but sometimes it's hard to get to because it doesn't get provided in our area all that much. When we do, we try and get at least 1 or 2 team members to get to the advanced course just to keep up with their training. These are the current team members that we have. We have 8 members on our team, 6 patrol, and 2 correctional officers. Of the team members, we have a total of 73 years worth of experience. We just lost 2 of our team members to medical retirement. They also had 17 years each worth of experience. So we gained a couple new ones here. Like he said, Sergeant Peters came from Greene County, so he had a little bit of experience over there as well. Deputy Mike Borgwart and Correctional Officer Echeverria, they both just joined our team and they both just went through the basic course, so they are now freshly on our team. So I'll go through a little bit of the old equipment that we had. We had this all the way up until 2009. As you can see, there's corded phones inside of there, and that big black wheel was a 1,000-foot line of telephone wire. So in order to get that phone on the table into the house, the SWAT team had to carefully take that through, which might have been cut a couple times and spliced in there, and put that phone inside of a house for us to be able to try and talk to somebody. The phone that's in the case there is an old rotary phone. So we sometimes use that now with the new people to kind of test them to see if they even know what it is or if they know how to use it. This is what we purchased in 2009. It was a huge upgrade from what we had. Goes off of cellular devices. We used 2 cell phones. One was thrown into the residence or area that the subject was.
And then the other cell phone stayed with us. We connected through a Bluetooth feature on that device, and then we were able to use headsets and allow multiple people to actually listen in on the phone call. We were actually able even to have an extended speaker that we could take on a corded line as well, but we could pass it off into another room where then the SWAT command staff could also have access to listening to our conversations. This is some of the equipment that we also have where we had a trailer where we did all of our command posts. We had a little area in the back corner, and then the command staff usually took up the other part of it. This has been with us for a very long time as well, and is slowly degrading. Over in 2021, we were approved to purchase a Ford Transit van, which you see on the bottom. It is a dually van with a high roof and extended that we are going to make into our new command center. It has 3 different workstations. We do have it finally. Took a couple years for us to get it built and bring it here to us, but we do have it at the sheriff's office, and we'll hopefully be getting it outfitted within the next couple months. Inside that van, we're gonna have multiple workstations, like I stated, and it's gonna be equipped with a Wi-Fi with different networks that we can use to do a lot of information gathering and computer-based background searches. During our call-outs, depending on how many people we actually get to come to our call-outs, we have a bunch of different spots that we do. The first one would be the team leader. Usually that is done by the most senior person that arrives on scene. If I'm there, I will be the team leader that goes between us and command staff to kind of break the barrier of what we're doing and what the progress is that we're making. Then we have a primary and a secondary negotiator. Like it states, the primary negotiator is the first one that's speaking with the subject. The secondary negotiator would then sit there and also listen in on the call, but then they would take notes and assist with passing those on to the primary negotiator in case they need some new ideas of what to talk about. We then have a note taker that also will scribe. Inside that van, we're gonna have white walls, which has the dry erase boards. So we're actually able to write on the walls. The note taker would then put all the stuff that's being talked about so that we know the things that would make the subject upset or make them actually want to talk. So we have our yeses and nos of what to talk about. The background investigator is going to be doing a lot of the computer-based type work where they're searching the background on the subject, the background on the locations. Have we ever had contacts with this person in the past? Try and get some of the family and friends. And then our information gatherer will sometimes do the interviews with those family and friends that the background investigator found. They'll also interview witnesses on scene. And sometimes if there's only 2 of us, we do it all. It gets pretty stressful in certain situations, but we have had it where we've only had 3 people on scene and we were able to come up with some pretty peaceful resolutions. A few of the types of incidents that we do go to are suicidal subjects, family problems, people with money problems, a lot of mental health issues, and employment, death of family or friends. And they can turn into one of the 2 different types of situations. We have barricaded subjects who, like it states, they barricade themselves into a house and they just don't want to come out. We try and just talk to them and get them to come out with a peaceful resolution and let them know that we're here to help. We're not here to hurt them, harm them, or anything like that. We just want to get them the help that they need. The hostage situation is same type of situation, but with other people in the house that they're refusing to let leave the house. Lately, we've been going on search warrants, on high-risk search warrants with our SWAT team. This is something new that we've been starting over the last year. We've done a lot of deployments with them where we ride in the armored vehicle. We are the ones that are actively calling to the residents and asking the people to come out and let them know that there is a warrant. We are there so that if something were to pop up, we have a negotiator on scene right away instead of waiting that extra 30 to 45 minutes to have somebody come on scene. That's all I got. Any questions?
Do you have Spanish-speaking people that work with you?
That is a great question, and yes, we do. Deputy Monica Fuentes and then Correctional Officer Echeverria both have that capability where they are bilingual. I can tell you within the last 2 years, we've had 5 major incidents that we've went out on. However, within that time, Sergeant Mike Schauer is on 3rd shift patrol. Sergeant Peters was on 3rd shift patrol at one point. Deputy Fuentes is on 1st shift patrol. And then even in the jail, they have handled so many situations out there with people in crisis, and they were able to prevent that coming into a big situation just because of the training and the extra stuff that they've learned in the past.
So I'm guessing your hostage negotiations don't look anything like what we see on Law and Order SVU.
No, not too much. However,
So what does it look, what does, it can give us an idea kind of what that looks like? Because I don't want to be disappointed.
all right. So it's gonna look a little bit more like that in our new van that we're getting. Because in our van that we are currently creating, we will have, like I said, 3 workstations on the one side. It's gonna be all whiteboards, so we can write on all the walls and write the stuff down. We have 3 monitors above us where we're able to actually put stuff and project it onto those screens for our primary and secondary negotiators. The note takers are working hard to try and keep up with that, and then our interview guys are working around the clock to try and just get us information and keep feeding it to us. So inside that van, we will do a lot of work just with that. And then we'll even have cool red lights in there so it looks neat, like the stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
I just have a question on, you'd mentioned a couple of shift people actually had performed some duties. Do you anticipate teaching other officers on duty your skills as hostage negotiators?
So that would be something that we would look at doing, like as an in-service type topic, where we can actually show and put on a slideshow for them to be able to get those skills, or at least a minor side of what we can do. Like I said, especially the ones in the jail, it was great to have 2 correctional officers get on our team because they use it every single day. They're always dealing with somebody in crisis that's coming in. Everybody that comes in the jail is pretty much having the worst day of their life. And then they go back there and try and smooth it out and make them know that we're there to help them and we'll get them anything that they need.
Many people in our department on jail and patrol have also gone through the crisis intervention training, which is a 40-hour program, which all of the negotiators, we've all done that as well, but a lot of the other people have done that as well, and that's a great first step in helping get that out there.
Thanks, forgot about that. Yes.
Do you folks do the training with NAMI?
That was the crisis intervention training, yep. And we've done it between, I think when I did it, it was with Walworth County, and now Rock County has their own. So we have done all that training with them.
Okay, thank you.
All right, well, thank you much for your time, and thank you for allowing us to be here.
Next item, please.
11A, supplementary appropriations and budget changes. 11A1, budget amendment, East Hangar Development Construction Project.
Moved by Supervisor Stevens, second by Supervisor Winter. Supervisor Winter?
I'm going to refer this to Greg Cullen.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Greg Cullen, Airport Director. So this project has been in the development works for about 3.5 years. When I first got to the airport in the end of 2017, our airport layout plan, our airport master plan had been in the works for 10 to 15 years. Those are supposed to be updated about every 7 to 10. So we took an action then. As part of that, we were very fortunate at the airport to have some construction. So in the last 5 years, we have built 8 new hangars. We were running out of green space, if you will. So as part of the master plan and part of the expansion, I recognized and others, we took the 13-acre parcel of land on airport property south of one of our tenants called SC Aviation, and we implemented into that to develop it to, if you will, kind of get it shovel-ready, much like a subdivision for homes. So the intent of this project is to develop the land, do some earthwork, get some utilities, main gas lines, main sewer, and we have to create 3 taxi lanes. One is a new taxiway right off an existing taxiway, and then basically fingers, if you will, taxi lanes where airplanes can taxi to and from their hangar. So with that comes a cost. I work with the state, the Bureau of Aeronautics, the Wisconsin BOA. They're our agent for us as a general aviation use airport. They put this project out to bid in middle of May of this year. We were anticipating by our engineering firm that we contract with, Mead and Hunt, about a $3.5 million project. For all of that, it came in well under bid at around 2.3, 2.4 million. So that was good. It has not been awarded yet. Once we found out the number that came in, we realized that the money that in this year's budget, 2023, that I'd allocated for our 5% local share wasn't quite enough. So I had $75,000 set aside. We needed about $225,000. So as I talked to Sherry, we are fortunate in the airport budget that we have what's called a fund balance from other projects that have come and gone. Money that didn't get used gets fenced, if you will, stays in the airport budget. So with that fund balance, we had our money, our local share to cover it. So this resolution is asking to transfer from one pot of money into obligate it for this particular project. So the money is there. I'm not asking for any more money. It's just transferring of money. Any questions?
Any questions? Supervisor Stevens?
I keep forgetting I have to turn on my mic. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So is this a matching funds grant?
Yes, a good question.
Thank
So we're using about $1.65 million, our 2022 and 2023 building infrastructure law money. So that's where the majority that is coming from. We're also getting some other grant money. It's called entitlement, airport improvement project money on the federal side. So that's where the 95% of this is coming from, and we will not have to pay that back. We just need to come up with the 5% local.
Thank you.
Supervisor Zorl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions. The first question is, it appears that this is a budget amendment. Mr. Greenlee be able to compare and contrast why this is a budget amendment, but say something else might not be a budget amendment, as if you're creating new positions in a, you probably know where I'm getting at.
I actually really don't know where you're getting at. I mean, I can answer the question in that a budget amendment is something that takes a source of revenue that is not in the budget, for instance, a fund balance, and places it into the budget in order to expend it.
Can you compare and contrast this resolution with the other one, 11E?
This resolution takes money that's not in the budget and puts it in the budget. The other resolution does not.
And who is the author that drafted this resolution?
The airport board.
Did people come in and sit around and start talking about, you do this whereas clause, you do this whereas, and who was writing it on the paper?
Well, I drafted it for the board. It was discussed at the airport board meeting, though.
So this was drafted by you?
Yes,
And are you a citizen of Rock County?
I am.
Which county board supervisor took your draft and submitted it to the committee?
Well, talk to Supervisor Richard first. He is our current acting chair since Supervisor Fox stepped down. But we put the Southern Wisconsin Regional Airport Board as the initiator. Then it was discussed at our meeting.
Did Supervisor Richard submit this resolution to the committee?
Well, I believe my secretary submitted it on behalf of the airport board.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. This resolution was submitted by a non-elected official in violation of our rules. This is Rule 3I. It was drafted by a citizen of Rock County and submitted by a non-supervisor. It violates our rules.
That is overruled based on the same logic that we've used for similar situations with names being on, on resolutions.
I move to appeal the decision of the chair.
Is there a second for that? Is there a second? Is there a second? Motion fails for lack of a second. Other discussion? This is roll call. Please vote.
Twenty-three yes, 1 no, 5 absent.
Next item, please.
Next item, 11A3, amending the 2023 Human Services Department budget to accept funding for the jail medication-assisted treatment program.
Moved by Supervisor Knutson, seconded by Supervisor Winter. Supervisor Knutson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services has provided an additional $28,747 to continue support the Rock County's jail medication-assisted treatment program, which uses this funding to partner with the Rock County Sheriff's Office, jail, and advanced correctional health care. The funding provides medication and supportive services to people who are transitioning from jail back into the community. We would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Discussion. Seeing none, this is roll call. Please vote.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I meant to participate in the discussion. It was just a question. There's a private grant coming from who?
Oh, go ahead, Supervisor Knutson, if you would care to answer that.
Wisconsin Department of Health Services.
Others? Roll call, please vote.
24 yes, 0 no, 5 absent.
Next item, please.
11D, approval to begin acquisition process for selected 2023 PACE program applications.
Moved by Supervisor Towns, seconded by Supervisor Whitledge. Supervisor Sweeney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The approval of this resolution would begin the acquisition process for the purchase of agricultural conservation easement.
Supervisor Sweeney, could you put your microphone on? Thank you.
My neighbor had to do it for me, sorry.
Teamwork.
Approval of this resolution would begin the acquisition process for a selected 2023 purchase of agricultural conservation easement. There are 4 properties that have been accepted in the enrollment process.
Questions? Questions? This is roll call. Please vote.
Yes, 24, no, 0, 5 absent.
Next item, please.
Item 11E, authorizing transition of oversight emergency management functions from the Sheriff's Office to the County Administrator's Office.
Moved by Supervisor Baumkamp, seconded by Supervisor Knutson. Supervisor Beaver, are we looking at you? Supervisor Baumkamp.
I can do some of this. If you have questions, Sheriff Fells here, he could probably answer some more. This is a position we moved to be underneath the county administrator versus the sheriff's department. Currently, it has to be a sworn officer in this position, and Sergeant Sheena Kohler has decided that she's going to take a different position in the sheriff's department, so it's coming open. This is a good time to move it out. Along with COVID, some things came out. Emergency management is more than the sheriff's department. It involves the health department, fire departments, railroads. You're limiting your applicants for this position by having to be a sworn officer. Most police officers that want to become police officers do not want to be in the emergency management role. They want to be in leadership roles. So this will give us more applicants for it. With COVID, some of the problems we had is Sergeant Sheena Kohler had limited authority. So when decisions needed to be made at certain meetings, they couldn't be made following the chain of command. That was some of the concerns that outside departments brought forward to me. And also, trying to get somebody in there from the sheriff's department is going to be very difficult. Whereas if they're under the county administrator, they'll be given instructions and they'll be able to make decisions easier and help other departments. And it'll help other county agencies in emergency management situations. I think I about covered it, Kurt. Yeah. Okay.
And Sheriff Fell, do you have anything to add to that?
As Supervisor Baumkamp has said, we discovered COVID especially.
Sheriff Fell, if you would mind coming to the microphone, please.
There were a number of different reasons. Supervisor Baumkamp covered a lot of them. During COVID, we did discover that there were some issues that occurred with the chain of command aspect and trying to get things resolved relatively quickly. Sometimes we don't move real quick. The term of emergency management sometimes makes it a little more difficult when it's tied into an agency like ours that you got to go through certain steps. I think by moving that out from under our purview will probably enhance it. Sergeant Kohler had 10 years in there, and what it did is it really limited what the capability of that supervisor is, because you pigeonhole them and then they don't have an opportunity to broaden their capabilities. She did a phenomenal job. I worked with her basically from when she first started as a deputy, and she did a great job with emergency management. She's highly organized, highly motivated. We sent her to schools pretty much nonstop for about 3 years. And then she went to a number of them after that every year since then, so for the last 7. We don't have anybody else that had that level of training, and we would have to start all over again. By moving this away from us, you open up, as Supervisor Baumkamp said, the opportunity to hire somebody who already has some of this experience and will be more ready to go. If this doesn't work out, I'm gonna have to try to convince the sergeant, and basically could end up having to order one in there that doesn't wanna do it. And we all know that they'll do their job and they'll do well, but it's gonna be somebody who doesn't end up wanting to do it, and that could be a problem. Sheena wanted to do it, she was energetic about it, but she's done 10 years within there. And that's a long time doing a high-stress job. And she's earned the right to be able to try something different, and we have a position we need filled to assist us with our jail and with our training program within the jail. We've needed it for years. We needed it back when I was a training sergeant overseeing the programs for both sides of the building. And this is the opportunity that came up at this point in time to be able to, what in my opinion is, do the right thing. It'll help our relationship, I think, with Janesville Fire Department, because we were having competing budget under them for their hazmat, which created a little bit of a rift at our level that didn't need to be there. I mean, those are people we work with every day, and I want to make sure we maintain a good relationship with them, and I think separating this does help with that as well. Does anybody have any questions I can?
Questions for Sheriff Fell? Supervisor Zorl?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do civilians work in the sheriff's office?
Do civilians work in the sheriff's office? Yes, sir.
Would it be possible to put a civilian in this position if it stayed in the sheriff's office?
Yes, we could do that. But you run into the same situation that I just discussed with the competing budgets and the rift that it does create.
What is the funding source to pay for this in 2023?
In 2023, there's funding available because the administrative assistant position, which is one of the 2 positions that currently helps operate emergency management, has been unfilled and vacant for the entire year. So we have a year's worth of salary there to cover no more than 3 months of salaries for the positions that would be created as noted in the resolution. So that's the funding source.
Which department is that position in right now?
Sheriff's office.
How much funds are currently available in that account?
Sorry about that. There we go. Okay, so you're looking at what funding sources are for the account, or how much is available?
Of the funding source that's been identified, how much funds do you have right now in that source?
Budgeted is, they have several accounts. They have the main operations account, which is levy funded, and there is budgeted $200,000 of levy, which is made up of $302,000 of expenditures, plus some sales tax and federal aid to come down to $200,000. And that is their main operations account. But however, they also have grant accounts that cover quite a bit of their costs as well.
What's the dollar amount needed to fund this in 2023?
Let me see. So by funding it, do you just mean the change in the positions?
The new positions that are being created, that says it's going to start no earlier than October 1st. So from October, November, December, those two positions, what's it going to cost for those 3 months?
Unfortunately, my connection is bad, so I can't get to those notes, but when I did calculate it, there was enough to fund the emergency manager, director, and the increased costs from the AA to the assistant management director for those 3 months, with the funds left over from the AA vacancy to fund everything, so.
And how many funds are left over from the vacancy? Was it-
I said I can get to the resolution right now, but I can't get to my notes. I am having some connection difficulty, so. But when I did my calculations, there was enough.
How much time do you need to pull that information together?
I'll see if I can rough it out a little bit. So just doing some math on the numbers in the resolution. So if we look in the executive summary, there's a couple bullet points at the bottom that talk about what the total annualized costs for those new positions would be beginning October 1, the new wage grid goes into effect. So if you just do the math there, excuse me, it looks like there's about $54,000 of costs for those 3 months of personnel costs. If you look at the cost of an administrative assistant that was budgeted in 2023, the annualized costs for salary and wages of that position around $65,000. So in rough numbers, that accounts for the available funds in 2023 to fund those 3 months of costs.
Would it be correct to interpret that it's $65,000 for the administrative assistant position for 12 months of the year, and you haven't used any of that money so far, and therefore, because you're estimating that the cost is going to be $54,000 for the last 3 months, the logic here is that that $54,000 is less than $65,000, and that's the basis for saying you have the money to do it?
Correct.
And that $54,000, is that going to be paying for both positions or just the director?
That's for both positions, assuming both positions are filled effective October 1. I will say that is likely a larger number than in reality will occur. The emergency management director would need to be hired first. If this were to be approved at this meeting and we began right now, we'd expect a hire date probably sometime in October, and we would hire the assistant director subsequent to the director. And so it is possible that person wouldn't be hired at all this year, but we wanted to put in the maximum amount possible just to be conservative.
What is the full cost, currently annualized cost, for the person that's currently in the role, the sergeant position, including salaries and benefits? And then what's also the cost for that other position that's not filled?
So the annualized cost in salary and the benefits for the administrative assistant, the unfilled position, is about that $65,000 that I mentioned previously. I would have to look to see, I don't off the top of my head know what the cost for a sergeant position in the sheriff's office is, whether it's the first step or what Sergeant Kohler's current wage is. Have to do a little research on that unless someone else in the room happens to know.
So I can get to the internet wage grid, not the network necessarily, but. Okay, so. So I don't have, let's see, it looks like a deputy sheriff, depending on the year they're at, let's say like $30 to $33 an hour.
Is a deputy sheriff the same as a sergeant?
This is a wage grid I can get to as the deputy sheriff.
So I was able to pull up the sergeant wage grid. So the first step at a higher rate for a first shift sergeant is $38.90. So the salary at $38.90 would be, let me do that again, about $80,000, $81,000. That's salary cost plus the benefit cost. I don't know what factor we'd put in toward that.
Let's see. So just roughly, it'd probably be between 50 and 60, depending on the type of health insurance the person would choose.
So between $130,000 and $140,000, it sounds like is the estimate.
Yeah, that's rough.
So for the two of them, I don't know, let's just go in half instead of 135. That would be for the one position that we have now, plus the 65 is the other, and that 65 does include their benefits, right?
Correct.
So we would agree that based on what we have now and budgeted, as is status quo, $200,000 a year, right?
That'd be the estimate.
And those two positions are, we're actually creating new positions, so instead of a sergeant, one's gonna be a deputy, one's gonna be a director, one's gonna be a deputy director, correct?
Correct.
What are the same numbers for those two positions?
So I believe those numbers are in the resolution. So the emergency management director would be in grade P of the new wage grid. So the annual salary, starting annual salary in grade P is $94,161, which would put your personnel costs around $125,000. Your deputy emergency management director would be in grade K, which is starting salary of around $66,000. Total personnel costs estimated around $92,000.
Are we only going to be authorizing for the starting? I'm guessing that's step one, right?
Correct.
Is there any possibility that you could hire for higher than step one? I know at some point in the past, we said that I think management could go to step 4 without special approval. Is that right?
In the past, the current rules do allow hiring above step 1, as was discussed when the wage study was going through staff committee, and some staff were not happy that people could be hired above step 1. We did talk to the staff committee about bringing back rules that might modify that. We're currently in the process of evaluating those rules, so those will have to go back to the staff committee as far as, which limits my ability to tell you what will be in place when we would potentially hire these people. The rules have not been determined yet for the new wage grid.
What's the highest step number based on the current rules? Or is there no limit? Could it go to the maximum step?
No, currently, well, the difference in maximums is that currently in our unilateral wage grid, we have 5 steps. And in the new wage grid, we have 14 steps. So maximum isn't necessarily apples to apples there. So you could go, under the current rules, there are situations in which we could hire at step 5.
Point of order? Is there an end to this? Chair?
Supervisor Zorro, do you have a lot more questions to get to what you need to know?
Well, given that it's not in the resolution, I do have some questions on what this is going to cost us, and I do think it's reasonable for our taxpayers to understand what something costs before we actually vote on it. That's really not unreasonable. I mean, I haven't even started discussing it at all either. I'm just asking questions. So, if you could continue, please, with regards to the steps. The goal here is to understand on those two positions, is this really going to be step one in both positions, or could it be something else?
It could be something else. As I said, I don't know what those rules are going to be about hiring under the new wage grid, so I can't speculate as to what a maximum amount might be, which is what I assume your question is. When we do resolutions like this, we estimate it at step one. The ways that we are, again, is trying to be conservative is including costs that, as I said, about the deputy director that may not be incurred this year. So, we do take steps to try to be conservative, but to try to give a range of figures, we believe is just being confusing. I think the board is sophisticated enough to understand that we're providing you with an estimate of potential costs, and that they may be more, they may be less, and we're trying to just provide you a good faith estimate of what those costs would be.
Is it likely or not likely that you'd be hiring on step one?
It is never our intent to hire above step one, as we try to maximize the savings to the county. We try to hire the best candidates we can for the lowest cost, which, is something I would advertise to candidates we're trying to recruit, but that's what we do, right? We have obligation to the county to try to save money. We also have an obligation to try to hire the best candidate. So it's a case-by-case decision.
Is it fair to say that the majority of who you hired this year so far has been in fact step one?
I would have no way of knowing that about all the people that we've hired this year.
So if it was step one, the director would be at 125 all in with benefits, compared to what we're currently at 130 to 140. So would it be correct to assume there's actually a little bit of savings on that position?
Yeah, and actually, the wage given for the sergeant was the beginning cost, so, an experienced sergeant like we have now would actually be a lot more, so it would be a savings.
And what about the second position? That is going to be 92,000 versus 65. That one's substantially more, right?
Correct.
So assuming step one is our basis for hiring, we're looking at 217,000, correct?
Correct.
And that compares to 130,000, right? Because we're actually creating a new position here. We're adding a new one.
Correct.
So the total cost difference is going to be 87,000 incremental to taxpayers, correct?
But I haven't done that math, but I'll take your word for it.
But it sounds reasonable based on the numbers we've discussed so far. In other words, I'm not making a math error.
Yeah, I can't speak to how accurate it is. I think the point you're making is correct, right? There will be an increased costs. It will be the cost of a new position. The way to think about it is that the sergeant in the sheriff's office will remain, so that cost, is what it is. So if you just want to think about the marginal change in cost, which is what I tried to put in the resolution for you, the very last line in the executive summary. If you just think about the cost of the new emergency management director at step one, and the incremental cost of the assistant director versus the AA, the number I came up with in the resolution is about $150,000. So it's more than your estimate. That, again, in a conservative way, that is a total cost. That is not necessarily representing the levy cost, because there are grants that do offset some costs of those positions. But I, again, trying to be conservative and not trying to be underrepresenting what the cost would be. That's the figure that I included in the resolution.
So what it comes down to is the administrative department's going to have to see approximately at current cost, not including any kind of increases next year in '24, but an incremental in your department, $87,000, right?
No, because like he said, there's federal aid and other aid, so it isn't necessarily local taxpayer funding.
That's a good point, and actually, I believe makes it worse, because the current sergeant position actually cost more, right? And that's currently half funded by a grant under the sheriff's office, and because that's a more expensive position, and we're going to a cheaper position, do we lose some of that grant then?
No,
How does the grant work?
we get a set amount of money, what they determine, what the, looking up the agency, what the LEPC and the federal agency determines how they spread out the money to all the local agencies, so. Whether
Okay,
it's in the sheriff's office or in the administrative, we're gonna get a set amount. It doesn't take into account whether it's a sergeant or a civilian pay grade.
what is that amount?
So far, as far as I can get to at the moment, so far we've received 130,000 in federal aid
For just these two positions, or is that total?
for their operations account, yep. And then they have some other funding for some other things such as hazmat, and other various little operating costs.
So if we're at 200,000 on the sheriff's side right now, status quo, would it be fair to say that if things were kept status quo, we would take that 200,000 and subtract 130 from it? Is that correct?
If you say so, yep.
Well, I mean, you're the finance director. I don't know.
So the federal, you have all the personnel costs, operating costs, and minus the federal aid, that's what we're left with. It depends from year to year. Currently, like I said, there's $200,000 in tax levy. So there's so many variables as to what position, what wage scale. It's hard to say what the costs are going to be next year with the various hazmat needs and such, so I'm not willing to go any farther at this point.
I'm not asking you to. I'm just asking if we're at status quo.
And I think you've already gotten several numbers here tonight. So I'm not sure what more we can really tell you. We can rearrange the numbers, but you've pretty much gotten everything we have right now.
The numbers you provided is that we're basically at 200,000 right now in the sheriff's department, and you also said there's 130,000 in federal grant.
Well, I said there's $200,000 of tax levy supporting the operations of the emergency management system, and there's $130,000 of federal aid supporting the emergency management main operating account. That's what I said.
So help me understand the impact to taxpayers then. How do we calculate what we're currently paying versus what we're going to pay? Ultimately, what I'm trying to get at is, what's that difference?
So that just depends again on when.
9.20. 85,556.00.
Okay, that's not quite right.
Federal aid.
That's a budget number. I'm not sure how that even works. No, I had that capability,
Artificial intelligence is great.
Uh-huh. Never happened that before, so, sorry, just lost my train of thought. So we don't know the exact effect because this sergeant isn't going to be in that position no matter what, correct? She's moving. So we do not know if it stays a sergeant, what exactly they'd be starting in.
Just assume step one. I'm not asking for predictions of what you don't know. I'm just saying, let's just work with what we actually know.
Well, one thing, you estimated the cost of the sergeant, but she actually makes currently substantially more than what's there. She makes about $46 an hour, and it does not take into account overtime. I would assume with the new position, it'll be unilateral and you won't see the overtime that we see right now.
if we were to hire this as a, based on status quo, sergeant, that would be at step one, correct? And I was told that was between 130 and 140,000.
Correct.
All right.
Well, I think it just depends on the personnel available that would take that position. I don't think we can guarantee step one or anything, which I think you already have the estimated amounts to the effect. And I mean, we can play with the numbers back and forth as much as you want. I mean, we can come with a whole range of numbers, but I think what we're trying to say is we've come as close as we can at this point of what the cost is going to be.
I still need an answer, though, to understand.
Point of order. Mr. Chair, I thought there was a 10-minute limit on how this conversation has gone on far more than 10 minutes. Could somebody explain the 10-minute limit per Robert's Rules of Order? We're not following that. This line of question has gone on way more than 10 minutes. Thank you.
Point of order, that limit is discussion. These are questions.
The Robert's Rules of Order allows for the person to hold the floor for 10 minutes at a time twice during the consideration of a question. But that rule is incumbent upon somebody enforcing it, either the chair of their own motion or a motion of the, or point of order of the body, and up to the ruling of the chair about whether it's enforced. There's no automatic 10-minute timer. We don't have a timer. I can say that Supervisor Zorl has been speaking for about 20 minutes.
Point of information, how much of that time is mine versus waiting for answers?
All of it is yours. You are holding the floor. Nobody here can hold the floor but you.
Thank you. I'd like to point out that everybody would like to speed this up, and these questions certainly wouldn't be necessary if it was in the resolution, which I don't think it's really unreasonable to expect to have the numbers in the resolution. It has wage grids, but not these numbers.
Yes, the chair is supposed to rule on the point of order before discussion continues.
Okay, we have other people that want to weigh in on this, so let's move along. Supervisor Rashkin.
Thank you. Just while Supervisor is displaying his not knowledge of the subject, because we have ability to meet with county administrator or anybody.
Personal privilege.
Excuse me.
Point of personal privilege.
White privilege or which, I'm sorry?
Point of personal privilege.
Let's, Supervisor Rashkin, please continue.
Point of personal privilege.
I would like to call the question.
Point of personal privilege. Mr. Chair, Mr. Rashkin is not showing respect in terms of criticizing me. I thought we just had a whole bunch of people up here talking about respect.
Okay.
Mirror.
Let's take a breath here.
Also, I feel it's important to acknowledge that while Supervisor Zorl is looking to defund the police, we're concerned about child sex trafficking, and, you know, this just seems kind of counterproductive. That's all. But otherwise, I'd like to call the question.
Question has been called. If you want to continue this discussion, you will vote no. If you want to end this discussion, you'll vote yes. Roll call, please vote.
Yes, 20, no 4, 5 absent.
Okay, debate has ended on this particular item. We will go straight to the vote. Lisa, if you'd please read that back for us.
Authorizing transition of oversight of emergency management functions from the Sheriff's Office to the County Administrator's Office.
Okay, this is roll call, please vote.
Yes, 21, no 3, 5 absent.
Next item, please.
Next item, Item 11H, setting the 2023 salary of the county administrator.
Moved by Supervisor Mohini, seconded by Supervisor Beaver. Interim Director Spoden.
At your desk, there was a packet that was provided. It was a 3-sheet document related to the recommendation salary of the county administrator. Does anybody have questions, or would we like to go through this individually? Are we no to questions? No individually. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions related to the resolution?
Supervisor Zorl.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have some questions. Bet you thought I didn't. My first question is, who's the author of this resolution?
At the direction of the County Board Staff Committee, I wrote the resolution.
You would be the author?
Correct.
Are you a citizen of Rock County?
I am.
Who submitted this resolution to the committee?
I placed it on the agenda.
Are you an elected supervisor?
I am not.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. This violates Rule 3I.
Overruled as in other situations similar.
Any additional questions?
Supervisor Peer.
I'd like to call to order and vote.
Call the question, you mean?
Call the question, yeah.
Okay, we have a motion to call the question. Is there a second? Supervisor Rashkin?
20 hands just went.
Okay, if you want to continue discussion, vote no. If you want to end discussion, vote yes. Roll call, please vote.
Yes, 20, no 4, 5 absent.
Next item, please.
No, we need to vote.
Whoops, excuse me. Let's go. Getting ahead of myself here. We're back to the motion, and there will be no discussion. Lisa, please read that for us.
Setting the 2023 salary of the county administrator.
Roll call, please vote.
Supervisor Pennycook? Yes, 23, no 1, 5 absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, item HI, authorizing the addition of .8 FTE, part-time deputy position.
Moved by Supervisor Beaver, seconded by Supervisor Winter. Supervisor Beaver?
So anyhow, I would like to have Sheriff Bell come back up. And, oh, here we are. We have Sheriff Bell come back up, and he will fill everybody in on the reasoning behind this. Thank you. Bye-bye.
As you guys all know, downstairs, we have part-time retired deputies doing the, now I can't think of the term of it, where you go through the metal detector and that. It's been kind of a long couple days, but, yeah, that works. Thank you. With that, we realized that we needed to have 2 people down there during all hours of the courthouse being open. Because in the recent past, we had an issue where they called for some assistance. They wanted somebody to come to a courtroom, and our second person hadn't come in yet. And when we found that out, we realized that was a flaw in our system we had. So we have the alternative of looking for new full-time positions and putting some of them down there, which obviously with everything going on, we don't want to try to do that. Our alternative is hiring the part-time retirees, which gives us in my opinion, a great benefit at an extremely lower cost. So we're looking to expand it from the 7 we have to have the potential for 10, and that gives us more leeway to be able to staff it for the 2 positions. So we'll not only have the one at the security station, but we have somebody enabled to react to whatever's going on. This was initiated to us by DA O'Leary when there was an issue with the victim witness. And as soon as we realized it, we knew we had to fix it. So that's what we're asking for now. Financially, we have enough within ours to be able to cover it for this year. And then into '24, it would become part of our '24 budget request. So, but we realize that we don't want to wait. If we wait between now and the end of the year and something happens, it's on us. Our responsibility is the safety and security of the courthouse, and we take it seriously, and I'm sure you guys certainly understand that part of it. Supervisor Raskin, did you have a question, sir?
Just a comment. As a court-certified interpreter, I'm very often in courthouses, and I think there was one in Illinois, in Menard County, when there's 12,000 people living there, where there's one security guard. Everywhere else, there's more than one. So I think this is really just, prudent. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions at all? Mr. Toro?
Thank you. It does sound like this could be a good idea, but I do see we're also adding yet another position. My question is, and realizing this isn't done yet, but what would you be willing to recommend, budget cut-wise, to the county administrator for the 2024 budget to make this budget neutral in '24, knowing obviously it's not decided yet, but you've probably thought about some places you could make a cut. What were some of the ideas that you might be recommending?
I certainly am interested to hear what Sheriff Fell has to say. But I will say that there will be, it may be a little premature to ask that question. Part of the pre-budget presentation the sheriff is putting together, I have asked them to consider reductions in their budget, and that's why we have the pre-budget process for some of our larger departments, is to consider how we might actually have to reduce budget. So not that I want to give the sheriff a pass on this, but just to remind you that could be coming in a couple of weeks when we see Sheriff Fell's pre-budget presentation. But if you do have an answer, please go ahead.
And a good part of that is with our budget, we ask to purchase certain things throughout the year. We have to look at it and ask, obviously, for the majority of it the year before, and that changes and fluctuates because we don't buy all brand new stuff every year. So our budget moves a lot depending on the large purchase items, things like that, and we take it into account. Commander Burdick in the back and Commander Chelevold, they put together the budgets with the idea of keeping it as fiscally responsible as we can. So some of the things some of their people may have wanted, we won't get because we know that this portion of it is important. So we try to put together a respectful budget every year. And I did go back to our accounting supervisor and confirm the fact that we've been good with our budget every year for well over 5 years now, because it is important to me. And I've been a big part of our budget and probably one of the predominant spenders in various things with SWAT and the other stuff and the vehicles that we have. So I understand your question. I can't tell you exactly what it would be because we go through and quite a bit of it's whittled down by these guys already before it gets to me because they know we need to be reasonable.
Is it fair to say this is an incremental cost of $76,800 per year?
Yeah, that would be reasonable.
And what is it after you add on the benefits?
From my perspective, I don't think much of anything because they already get them.
Yeah.
They get benefits upon their retirement.
That includes benefits. Yeah, so Sherry's indicated that already includes benefits because they just get the FICA because they're part-time and they're already in the retirement system and so they're not getting retirement.
So $76,800, that's what it costs per year, but there's no idea where it could come. Any ideas for '24 or?
Part of our '24 budget. It's built within it. I'm not going to tell you certain things are going to be cut out of it. because it fluctuates each year. The only thing consistent with it is the personnel cost, because we usually don't cut people. Otherwise, we purchase different things depending on our need at the time. You know, we purchased an airboat that was $80,000 to replace an airboat that was over 30 years old and worked probably 2/3 of the time, which in an emergency situation isn't acceptable. So we had to ask for a big purchase item, and when we did that, we didn't ask for other things because of that. That's how I think a predominant number of the departments within our county work.
How many vacant positions do you have right now?
I don't know. I'd have to go back and look. I didn't bring that with me.
Can you give a rough estimate? 5, 10, 20, just ballpark?
No, I don't, not right now. I'm not gonna take a guess at it and be shown to be wrong later on.
Would it be possible to cut any?
Call the
possible-
question.
Point of order, I have the floor, Mr. Chair.
Call the question, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Zorl does have the
I call the
floor.
question, Mr. Chair.
I hear that.
I call the question, Mr. Chair.
Supervisor Zorl has the floor, so we'll let him finish with his line of questioning, and then we'll go ahead and call the question if so desired. Supervisor Zorl?
He'll break it.
Mr. Chair, I move to censure Supervisor Podzilny for
I
his
move you
outburst.
shut up.
Supervisor Podzilny, please, Supervisor Podzilny.
Up for a while.
Point of personal privilege,
Supervisor
he's out of control.
Podzilny, please pay some respect. Let's let Supervisor finish with his line of questioning, and we'll move ahead. Please.
I'd just like to say to the people watching at home right now on YouTube, I want you to pay attention to the disrespectful people and who's respectful and who's not. Please pay attention to that. Point of personal privilege, he's continuing to do it. Mr. Chair, could you please have him removed? Each one of us deserves respect, and we are not getting it. Mr. Chair, this is on you. It's your leadership position. You were criticized in the staff committee for leadership issues. This is a good opportunity to show you're a strong leader.
Supervisor Podzilny, can you please refrain from any remarks until Supervisor Zorl is finished with his line of questioning? Supervisor Zorl, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move to remove his $50 per diem for this meeting.
Let's stick to the topic at hand, please. Supervisor Zorl, if you would like to continue with your questioning of Sheriff Fell.
Defunding the police, please continue.
Supervisor Rashkin.
Mr. Chair, this is what happens with weak leadership. You're not taking any actions against these people interrupting me. Please do something about it.
I'm trying to reason with them. I'm trying to do things short of having them removed. Supervisor Rashkin, would you please, just please, let Supervisor Zorl proceed? Okay.
Everybody at home, please pay attention to what's happening right now. These people don't listen to our constituents about respect.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll continue, but I've really have lost my track of thought here. I need to start over with my 10 minutes, I think. I think it's only reasonable I should get 10 minutes from Mr. Podzilny, 10 minutes from Mr. Rashkin.
Well, I don't know about 10 minutes. Why don't you just start up and we'll go from there. So please proceed.
Mr. Chair, Supervisor Rashkin's walking out of the meeting. We had a walkout before, and he's doing it, it's happening again.
Please proceed.
I need a minute to collect my thoughts, please.
Absolutely.
Thank you. As I was saying, this is a $76,800 incremental increase to the budget. I think it's a good idea. I mean, I'm convinced, yeah, we need so I'm supportive of the concept behind it. No, I don't want to defund the police. I've never defunded the police. In fact, if you recall during budget last year, I didn't even try and make one single cut to your budget. But I am interested in trying to be budget neutral. Is there perhaps any possibility with any vacant positions at all, or paper clips or anything that you might suggest that would allow us to at least be budget neutral
For 24,
for 24?
I'm not looking at our budget right now, but as I stated, when we prepared it,
Mr. Chair, point of order.
he's trying to get it.
What is the source of that?
He's working on it. That's, I could tell he was working on it from the second one off.
Okay.
So,
Is that controlled?
all right, so with it, we take that into consideration when we're preparing the budget. I'm not gonna tell you that our budget is gonna be neutral going into next year. We're still putting some of the stuff together because of the different costs that have come into play. But we took this into account when we were putting the budget together to realize that we needed to cut some of the things that we might otherwise ask for. As I stated before, I mean, we're not out here trying to look for every way to spend all the money that you guys have.
Thank you, Sheriff. Keep up the good work, and hopefully sometime between now and that pre-budget meeting, you might have some ideas, and we'd be happy to consider them at that time. Thank you.
Anybody else have any questions?
Others, Supervisor Sutherland.
Thank you, Sheriff. I see this as a need, not a want. And hiring retired deputies is a really good idea. They've been on the job for so many years, then they're retired, they're still doing training or keeping up their licensing and what have you. And I'll bet that this probably is a lot cheaper than private security, which I wouldn't even want to see around here. Would that be a correct statement?
I would believe that's true. I wasn't part of the group that went through and figured out what the different costs were. But I will tell you, you're not gonna find a better group of people to assist people as they come in there.
Right.
They not only run the security station, they answer questions all day long. And they're knowledgeable because they've worked in this job for 30 years. They're personable. They deal well with people. They're probably some of the better people we had before, and they continue it now.
Thank you.
Others? Supervisor Towns.
Here we go. Thank you. I appreciate all the questions you've answered tonight, and I think we have kind of gone around in circles on this and answered as much as we can. And next year's budget's always an unknown until we get there.
Yes.
And so at this point, I'd like to call a question.
Okay, we have a motion to call the question. Is there a second for that? Supervisor Stevens. Voting yes means you want to end discussion. Voting no means you want to continue to discuss. Roll call, please vote.
Twenty-three yes, 0 no, 6 absent.
Okay, back to the original motion. Lisa, please read that.
Authorizing the addition of .8 FTE, part-time deputy position.
So roll call, please vote.
Yes, 23, no 0, 6 absent.
Next item, please.
Item 12, adjournment.
Supervisor Baumkamp, Supervisor Whitledge, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?